on an otherwise perfect day, a shocking and unimaginable event unfolded. The family, who rarely had time to just be together, was finally enjoying a rare moment of relaxation. Tom had managed to carve out some free time to spend with his wife and their toddler son, Ralph, who had just begun walking. The afternoon was serene. They lounged on the lush green grass, drinks in hand, snacks laid out on a blanket nearby. Ralph, in his wobbly toddler steps, had ventured into the taller grass, enchanted by the wild flowers. Then, in an instant, their idyllic afternoon turned into a nightmare. From the towering tree above, a massive eagle descended with startling speed. Before anyone could react, the eagle had snatched Ralph from the grass. Tom and his wife were paralyzed with shock, their hearts racing as they scrambled to their feet. They raced towards the eagle, now soaring low over the ground with their precious child. The fear that Ralph could be dropped from such a height was overwhelming, and to make matters worse, the eagle was all too familiar to them. The serene day had been shattered in the blink of an eye. The fear was palpable, and uncertainty clouded every thought. Tom and Carla were gripped with terror for Ralph's safety, but their worry was compounded by confusion. Why had this eagle, a bird they had encountered years ago under unforgettable circumstances, targeted their child? The fear that one of Tom's proudest moments might have inadvertently put his family in jeopardy was overwhelming. Tom's family had cherished their ranch for generations. After completing his degree, he was eager to return home, excited to escape the city and share the wide-open spaces with his young wife, Carla. His parents were preparing for retirement, and Tom was ready to step in, bringing fresh ideas and a commitment to better conservation practices. But first he wanted to enjoy some simple pleasures. He and Carla had spent time climbing the cliffs on their ranch, exploring the grazing fields and lush landscapes that were vital to their business. For Tom, these moments were a reunion with his true love of the land and its beauty. Even the daily chores felt like a joy rather than a burden. One day, while inspecting the fences near the narrow river that meandered through their property, Carla, on her day off, brought Tom a lunch. As they were setting up, Carla suddenly spotted something strange in the bushes across the river. At first Tom thought it might be a large fish, but when he saw it struggling on the water's surface, he realized it had wings and was definitely out of place. Without hesitation, Tom kicked off his shoes and waded closer. It was a large bird, but he couldn't quite identify it. Determined to help, Tom jumped into the river, which was unusually calm and safe for a swim. However, his spontaneous rescue mission quickly proved more challenging than anticipated. As he swam across the river, Tom saw that the struggling creature was a young eagle. It was tangled in debris and fishing lines, its attempts to free itself only worsening its plight. The eagle's struggles were intensified by the swift current, and Tom knew he had to act quickly or the bird would drown. Tom swam quickly towards the eagle, but as he got closer, he realized that freeing the bird was going to be much more challenging than he'd anticipated. The eagle was tangled in fishing wire and bits of netting, its wings and feet ensnared in a hopeless mess. Tom knew he had to be incredibly gentle to avoid causing further harm to the already distressed animal. It was clear that all this debris must have drifted down the river and ensnared the innocent bird, putting its life at risk. The best solution seemed to be to lift the whole tangled mess out of the water and then carefully untangle the eagle. The netting was caught on some branches, but Tom hoped he could extract it with a little cooperation from the young eagle. Despite its dire situation, the eagle's beak was still free, and it was clearly furious about being trapped. Each time Tom tried to lift it, the eagle snapped at him, making him flinch and lose his grip. The added weight of the debris and the threat of the beak made the task even harder. Tom spoke softly to calm the eagle, naming it Rocky, but the bird was not in a forgiving mood. Animals sometimes understand human intentions, but Rocky seemed to grow more agitated by Tom's efforts. Carla, ever perceptive, suggested using his shirt to cover the eagle's head. Tom took off his shirt and gently draped it over Rocky's head, which helped soothe the bird enough to make the rescue possible. With the eagle calmer, Tom was able to swim back to the other side of the river with Rocky. Carla helped him carefully cut away the fishing wire and netting. They worked slowly and gently, ensuring they didn't harm the eagle further. As long as Rocky had the shirt over his head, he remained relatively calm, making their job easier. But even freed, Rocky wasn't in good shape. His wing was bent and missing feathers, and one of his talons was clearly injured. Tom and Carla knew they couldn't just let him go in this condition. He needed proper care. They wrapped him in the shirt to support his wing and placed him gently in the picnic basket Carla had brought. They wanted to keep him as still and secure as possible to avoid worsening his injuries. Back at their house, they called their local vet, who was familiar with their animals but not with wildlife shelters. The vet arrived with a bird cage and carefully tended to Rocky, bandaging his wing, setting his talon, and giving him an injection to help him relax and start healing. They were quite a distance from any local wildlife center, and given the severity of Rocky's injuries, the vet felt that many such places might have given up on him. Determined to help the eagle themselves, Tom and Carla decided to take on the challenge of nursing him back to health. The vet provided them with detailed instructions on how to feed Rocky and gave them some vitamins to sprinkle on his meat to aid his recovery. For the time being, they kept Rocky in a small bird cage to limit his movement and prevent further injury. Using chopsticks to offer him meat, they avoided direct contact, which helped keep him calm. At first it was difficult for Rocky to eat because his injured talon made it hard to balance. They had to bring the food close to his mouth, offering small pieces at a time. Despite his grumpiness, hunger eventually won out, and Rocky began to eat. As Rocky's talon improved, he regained some dignity, able to grip the food with his injured foot while balancing on the other. This allowed him to eat larger pieces, though his wing remained a concern since he still couldn't move it much. Just as things seemed to be improving, Rocky experienced a setback. Birds often hide their illness to avoid appearing vulnerable, which can be a death sentence in the wild. By the time symptoms are noticeable to humans, the bird is usually quite ill. The vet had warned Tom and Carla about this, which is why they acted quickly when Rocky refused several meals. Although he had tolerated their presence, he had a strong appetite for food, making his lack of interest a serious concern. They called the vet again, who came out as quickly as possible. By this time Rocky was more alert and his beak, though still dangerous, was less of a threat. He had also become more accustomed to Tom and Carla, showing less aggression. However, his distrust of the vet was evident as he remained wary of the new presence in his recovery space. They faced the tough decision of sedating Rocky to thoroughly examine him and determine what was causing his distress. Sedation can be risky, especially for a recovering animal, but they needed to find out what was wrong. The vet administered a small dose of sedation and got to work right away. When they checked under Rocky's wing, they discovered something shocking. A piece of metal, likely from a fishing hook, had lodged itself in his soft tissue, causing an infection. It had been hidden from view by his wing. The vet carefully removed the foreign object and cleaned the wound. Rocky would need another round of antibiotics to fight the infection and give him a chance to recover fully. But first, they had to hope he would wake up from the sedation. The vet administered medication to rouse him, but it wasn't working as quickly as they'd hoped. After giving him a little more, Rocky finally came around. He was groggy and likely sore from the procedure, but he was back in his small cage where he could rest and recover. With time, Rocky began to heal more rapidly. The pain might have made him a bit irritable at first, but as he improved, he seemed to become more relaxed and even excited to see Tom and Carla when they visited. He started using his wings more, strengthening them with each flap. Tom and Carla decided not to release him immediately. He needed more time to test his wings and build up his strength. Tom constructed a larger outdoor enclosure with various perches for Rocky to explore. It allowed him to fly around a bit and prepare for his eventual freedom. After a few weeks, they felt he was ready. They opened the enclosure and watched as Rocky took his first tentative flights. At first he seemed hesitant, perching in the tall trees nearby. But soon he spread his magnificent wings and soared into the sky. Watching Rocky fly away was a beautiful but bittersweet moment for Carla and Tom. They hoped he would thrive in the wild. A few days later they were stunned to hear an eagle's call just outside their house. When they looked up, they saw Rocky perched in the branches above. He spent several days and nights watching them from his tree, and although they left the large enclosure open for him, he preferred the view from the treetops. Tom decided to build an artificial eagle's nest in the trees for Rocky. It felt like a small gesture of hospitality for their regular visitor. Crafting the nest and installing it high enough for Rocky to use was a challenging but rewarding project. The first time they saw Rocky nestled comfortably in the nest, all their efforts felt worthwhile. It was as if Rocky had become part of their extended family. Then came the wonderful news their family was about to grow. They were expecting a baby. The couple was thrilled, imagining another generation to welcome onto their beloved ranch. When their baby boy arrived, Rocky was there to greet them as they came home from the hospital. He perched on lower branches than usual, curiously observing the tiny, squealing bundle in Carla's arms, as if trying to understand this new addition to their lives. Despite the new sounds and changes, Rocky continued his regular visits. As their son Ralph grew, Tom and Carla made the most of the fresh air and time together, often taking Ralph outside under the shady trees of their garden or for strolls around the ranch. Rocky would watch from above, a silent guardian. Ranch life was bustling, with crops and animals keeping them on their toes. Carla hadn't returned to work yet, so she brought Ralph to visit Tom during his busy days. Tom, in turn, cherished every free moment with his family. On a beautiful spring evening, with the sun setting later and casting a golden glow, they enjoyed a perfect day in the garden. They watched Ralph take his first steady steps on the lawn, while they relaxed with snacks, serenaded by Rocky's distant calls. Just as Ralph ventured towards the wildflowers growing beyond the manicured garden, everything took a sudden turn. Out of nowhere, Rocky swooped down, snatching Ralph by his clothing and lifting him off the ground. Tom and Carla were paralyzed with shock. Was the eagle jealous? Did he see Ralph as prey? Had their proud moment of saving Rocky now turned into a nightmare? In a panic, they ran towards the eagle, calling out to their son. Strangely, Ralph wasn't crying. He seemed dazed and confused. As they reached the tree line, something unexpected happened. Instead of soaring higher, Rocky flew to Carla and gently set Ralph down beside her before perching a short distance away. Carla clutched Ralph, sobbing with relief, and he cried in response. He seemed to be trying to communicate something through his hissing noises. It clicked for Tom that there must be a reason behind Rocky's actions. He hurried back to where Rocky had initially grabbed Ralph and discovered a menacing snake coiled beneath snake coiled beneath the flower Ralph had wanted to smell. If Rocky hadn't intervened, the snake could have bitten Ralph. They captured the snake and relocated it far from their home, but first they checked Ralph. To their astonishment, he was unharmed. His clothes were torn where Rocky had grabbed him, but his skin was untouched, except for some minor redness. Rocky, however, wasn't in as good shape. The weight of Ralph had injured his talons. Tom approached the injured eagle, who surprisingly allowed him to help. They brought Rocky back to the large enclosure, and after another vet visit, he was given time to heal before regaining his freedom. From that day on, Tom and Carla were deeply grateful for Rocky, their avian protector from above. It was a poignant reminder of the bond they shared with the wild and the guardian watching over their family. Thank you for watching. Join us again for more incredible stories.